explicit violence in your writings?
It's what I do, is one answer. I write horror fiction. There is a kind of curiosity that we have as human beings about our life processes. One of our last life processes is death. It's a legitimate subject for curiosity. We shouldn't be ashamed that the macabre or the morbid exercises some fascination upon us. I tell it like it is. If it's there in my mind's eye, I put it on the page. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to write.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Written in Red podcast. That is the horror reader and writers podcast. And let's just get started by reminding you who is hosting the show. It is none other than myself, the Splatterpunk Award nominated horror author Aaron Beauregard, of such works as The Slob, Scary Bastard, Die Tommy, Hallucinations. And we are also joined by my co-host Daniel J. Volpe.
Hey everyone, Daniel J. Volpe here. I'm the author of Billy Silver, Awakened in Blood, Talia, and my newest book from D&T Publishing, A Gift of Death, which is out now on Amazon.
Nice. And Carver Pike.
I'm Splatterpunk Award nominated author Carver Pike, author of books like Scalp, Grad Night, my Diablo Snuff series, and a bunch of others.
And Roland Bursey Jr.
Hey everybody, Roland Bursey Jr., author of Unbortion, winner of the 2019 International Fiction Awards, also author of Payback as a Witch and Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder, which is part of the Distended Table collection.
Awesome. We are the Written in Red podcast, and guys, I want to start by saying that it is my pleasure to do this podcast with you. I've really enjoyed it. As far as we've been doing it, I think this is episode 11, and so far we've been getting some really good feedback, and we really do want to say we appreciate all you guys that are watching regularly and kind of like, hey, when's the next episode coming? It's really greatly appreciated, and for those of you that haven't subscribed yet, YouTube subscription, that can help us out tremendously. Spotify, iTunes, any of those platforms. And of course, if you guys got questions, we're going to try and get to a couple today, but we do have our mailbag, and that is Written in Red. Is it Written in Red podcast?
Yeah.
At gmail.com? I can never remember. Written in Red podcast at gmail.com. Send those questions over, and we really appreciate it. But today, we've got a couple things on tap. Before we do our spotlight, our author spotlight, which Carver's going to help us out with, and then Daniel's going to do a little input on that too. Today's topic is evil editing. So we're going to be going into the editing process, talking about different types of editing, a little bit of everything really. So I think this one's going to be pretty interesting as to getting that finished product nice and refined and polished up so that when the eyes hit it, it's just ready to go and you're getting good reviews and not, little things where people are dinging you for grammatical stuff. So very important episode. Got a lot to talk about. I'm excited, but I'm going to hand it over to Carver for our weekly horror indie author spotlight.
Thank you, man. So this is my first time talking about a book, I think, other than in the beginning when we did our intros and our favorite book and stuff. And one of the reasons why is I don't read as fast as these other motherfuckers on here. So y'all are speed readers and shit. I can't keep up. So tonight I'm excited to talk about a good friend of mine, John Watson on Facebook. John is a very quiet author. He doesn't really promote his stuff very often. He's more busy. He's very active in the comments and stuff like that on my posts, and he's in my group and stuff like that. And he's always sharing other people's stuff, but you don't see him share his own stuff that often. And I know he's kind of quiet. He stays in the background a little bit. So we're going to push him into the foreground tonight. I'll push him out front and highlight one of his books tonight. So about 2 years ago, it was a long time ago, John Watson and I were talking, and he recommended one of his books to me, and it was Karaoke Night. You guys can see the cover here. It's kind of dark. It's basically just a kind of a dive bar. It says 10 songs, 10 tales, one creepy town. So Karaoke Night is about this kind of a journalist, like a blogger type of guy who goes into this, he's in this weird, strange town, and he decides to go and stop into this karaoke bar. And while he's there, he wants to interview the people, because you guys have been to karaoke places, and a lot of times the people sing the same songs almost every night. They get their usuals and stuff, and they get up and they sing the same songs all the time, right? So this guy notices that, and he wants to talk to people and kind of interview them about their songs. Like, what is it about that song? Like, why do you sing that song all the time? And so one by one, I guess it's 10 people, because this is 10 stories. One by one, each of these people come and sit down at the table with him, and it's told kind of like in a magazine interview style. The guy's name is Brian Keene, and I asked him if that had anything to do with the author, Brian Keene, and he said no, it was just a total coincidence. Like, he didn't even think about it until after the fact. But the main character's name is Brian King, and so it's told, as BK, the colon, and then what he says, this question and stuff like that. So the whole thing is like interview style, the whole book. And each person comes and sits down with him and tells their tale of why they sing that song. And it's just kind of it all kind of comes together in the end, and it's a very twisty, kind of demented, twisted story about this town and all the people that have lived there all their lives and what they've gone through, and kind of all comes together in the end, and it's a pretty cool book, man.
Ooh,
you should
cool.
The track list alone. So the chapters are named for the songs that are used in it. So even if you just like these songs, you should pick up this book. But you got Strawberry Fields Forever, Dancing Queen, Barracuda, Bad to the Bone, Coal Miner's Daughter, One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer, Piece by Piece, This Flight Tonight, School's Out, Love Shack, and King of the Road. So that alone might make you want to pick up the book and stuff. But John is a super cool dude. He's from Scotland, but living in the United States. And yeah, he has quite a few books out, man. He's got a couple of creature features out in a series by Crazy Inc. He's got one called Through the Eyes of the Mummy, Cradle Robber. He's got a book out called Salem. He's got a bunch of books out on Amazon. And I want to say, I could be wrong, but I think this might have been his first book, or I know it was one of his first. I thought he said when we first started talking that this was the first one he published, but I could be wrong about that.
A great concept. It's very seductive, that concept. I feel like you seduced me with that pitch of that book.
Carver, what might be more seductive? Maybe if you gave us a couple bars of your favorite karaoke song, like maybe It Gets Raining Men, something like that, if you wouldn't mind.
That would be my favorite song.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was confused.
Jules swears she's going to get me up to sing karaoke at the signing or one of the book signings. I don't know about that.
What about like a version? Can you
I
guys
bitch out.
You didn't run to Madonna? Yes, I got you.
Roland's coming in with the fucking cone titties on, and he's going at it.
I was just checking him out on Amazon. Like, his star rating is amazing, like 5 stars all the way across the board almost. So it sounds like a hell of a book. So
yeah, I'm on Goodreads right now, and on Karaoke Night, it has a 4.6 rating on Goodreads with 25 ratings and 18 reviews. And I'll just read a couple short ones just for everyone so they can kind of get a feel for it. A woman named Vicky Peplau said, "From the beginning, I was hooked. The characters and how the story was laid out had me gripped from the very start. Great work, and look forward to reading more." Another shorter one from a reader named Shelby says, "This is a mysterious tale with some twisted and interesting characters. The neat thing about this is I could hear the characters' voices in my head, all with their varying accents. I'm impressed how everything in the story came together to create a surprising ending. We'll definitely be reading more written words by this author." Those are some pretty good ones, and there's one, I'll read one more, DJ Brown. It's actually titled Quite the Ride, so it's probably on Amazon as well. It says, "Each chapter left me feeling more perplexed than the last, yet the end, while satisfying, still kept me at bay, making me realize that I never actually knew what I thought I did the entire time." So this book sounds like it definitely has some, like Aaron said, some seductive nature of it, and it definitely sounds like it's a well-told story.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things that one of those reviewers said that it's true is it's kind of hard to pull off, especially that kind of interview style, because you're talking about 10 different characters and you don't want to make – some authors would totally fuck that up and it would seem like the same character being interviewed every chapter. You know what I mean? And he did have I don't know how he did it, but I don't know about hearing the accents because I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read it, but I do know that it did feel like he was interviewing a different character every chapter, which was pretty cool. They all had, their own mannerisms. And I remember one guy was kind of rude, like, I just don't have time for this shit. Hurry up, let's get this fucking interview over with, and stuff where, the next girl she was really sweet about it and, wanted to sit for a while and talk. And so he did a pretty good job with that. I thought it was pretty cool, his characterization.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got some great reviews on here. So, I mean, if anybody wants to check it out, like I said, I'm on Goodreads, but like Roland had said, he's got a ton of other books. And, that's the cover. I'm looking at it now on Goodreads. But he has Karaoke Night, Be Kind, Rewind, Crueler, The Hollow-Eyed Girl, Cradle Robber, like Carver said, Off the Grid, Swimming Upstream, Slave to Blood, Possessed by... Oh, I'm sorry, that's not him. Slave to Blood is the last one I see by him. But all his ratings are very high. Some of the amounts of ratings are kind of low, but he does have in 5 to 4.5 star ratings. And Karaoke Night is definitely his highest rated, or the most ratings, I should say.
I think, let me see when this was. Swimming Upstream is one that he published, and he did promote a little bit on Facebook. I know that one was not horror. I think it's something to do with like a father and son's relationship and stuff. So I think that was more of like a close to home type of, story and stuff for him. But he's such a nice guy is the thing too. Like I said, he doesn't really do a whole lot of promotion. You'll see every once in a while he'll say something about his books and stuff, but he doesn't cram it down your throat. He's not, some of the stuff we talked about in a few episodes back, he applies some of those principles. So.
Yeah, no, I've had some interactions with him just on Facebook, and he just seems like a gentleman. Like, he's always cool, shares other people's stuff, will interact here and there. Yeah. Swimming Upstream, according to Goodreads, was published on April 9th, 2021. So, like you said, that is a pretty new book, and that has 4.67 stars on Goodreads with 6 ratings and 5 reviews. So people are definitely enjoying it, and definitely seems like a good author to take a look at. And like you said too, he seems like a really, genuine guy. He's also a reader because he's got a lot of books on here that he's read. So.
Yeah, he's read quite a few of mine, I think so.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great pick to recognize, and I think again, it's good hitting somebody up that is an advocate for the community and sort of, supports more others more so than themselves sometimes. So that's pretty awesome. So nice. We'll make sure, guys, the details. We could probably put them in the description. I try to put some detail in the description of the episode each time. But check it out, and we hope you enjoy it. But actually, before we get into the main topic for the evil editing, I wanted to ask you guys, now I believe we officially said, right, all of the written in red laminated prints that are signed by each of us are in Roland's possession, and they're all signed now, right?
They are signed.
All right, so I don't know. I guess this episode's going to air later, so I don't know. Do you guys want to do a giveaway shortly after this is released, or you think we should do one before? I
don't know. I'd like to see how many subscribers we can get on YouTube. I think we're just under that 150 mark, and I mean, like, when I say just under, let me check right now. We are at 145 subscribers. So I think if we hit 150, I think we should probably think about doing one by then. We only need 5 more subs, guys.
Oh, cool. This will be like some futuristic shit, too. So if you see this and it already hit 150, you might even be holding that shit right now.
Yeah, you could be.
That's some Matrix shit,
It's fucking mind-blowing.
Carter, Roland, do you have them nearby by any chance?
I don't, but I gotta go get them.
All right. I just wanted to see the finished product. Just want to see how it looks.
Okay, y'all keep talking, then let me run. I'll be fast.
Okay.
I'll be like
we're timing you, yeah.
Timing you. Go, hurry up.
2, 3.
I'm coming.
It's the easiest way to get your kids to do anything fast. Tell them you're timing them.
And what do we got? We got 10 of them, guys, right? Isn't it? I think I had 10 of them
10.
made up.
Yeah.
So there'll be 10
It
unluckies.
came out great. I'm waiting for Roland to come fucking flying back, slide off his silk sheets into the fucking ground.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
They're
that was
not-
cool.
That was fast. Man.
I had to run down the stairs. I don't know if you guys can see them.
Yeah, there we go.
Hold up a little higher.
Sweet.
Uh-huh.
There
Looks
you
good.
go.
Yeah, they came out really good. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, buddy.
Very nice.
Awesome.
They look
All
good.
right. We're such fucking narcissists.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, look at that logo we created with our signatures on it.
It's my signature.
Yeah.
oh man.
I write it a million times a day. Can I see it again?
What a fucking bunch of tool bags. All right.
Pieces of shit.
Oh my god.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, though, right? Evil editing. So, what? You've finished your story now at this point, right? We kind of did the other episodes about conceptualizing the story and then like writing it down, getting that first draft down, and now it's time to edit. However, I guess we could add the caveat, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is that there are some people that edit as they write, and I think, Roland, you do that somewhat, right?
I wouldn't call it editing. I proofread, yes.
Okay.
So as I go, I try and get it as close to the finished product as I can.
Yeah, I think you'd tend to spend a little more time like really refining a little bit more, and then doing your
too
run through
much.
later, right? Yeah.
I think if I spend more time just kind of writing and getting through it, I would probably get a lot more accomplished. But I guess that's just the way I work. So
No, everybody's different, and that's why it's good to talk about all of it. But we'll talk about that too, I think, probably as we go through this. But kind of where we wanted to start was, what kind of editing are you looking for once you have your completed product? And there's a few different types of editing, and we're just going to kind of take it back to a very basic level and just sort of, put a baseline out there for anyone who's really not familiar, with some of the terminology. So I'm just going to read through a few different types of editing. You probably have heard some of the terms before, but one type of editing is developmental editing. So like a developmental edit looks at the overall structure and the content of your book and like what you can change to make improvements. And like in this sort of editing, they'll give you like general feedback. What did you do well? Are there any reoccurring issues observed throughout the book? Content feedback too, right? That's also contained in here. Content issues reoccurring throughout the book, such as repetition, rambling, irrelevant content, or not enough content in depth. And we're going to go right ahead.
Sorry. That's funny that you should say that because I just had pre-Thanksgiving stress disorder edited again, and the editor told me that I use he said quite a bit. And even in my mind, I know that I used it a lot. I tried to switch it up and, he replied or he responded. But even throughout me trying to switch it up, he still said there was like way too many he saids in there.
Yeah. It's funny though, there's an old school train of thought. Like there's and I've read this, I don't know how true it is, I guess, but from what I understand, like there's a group of like old school writers that are like all you have to say is said. Right? And then the new school sort of uses different words, replied or he retorted. I personally, that's what I like to do. I like to switch it up. But I don't know if you guys have heard that. There's like a school of people that just say said is fine.
I never heard that.
Well, go ahead.
I try to mix up a little bit, but I don't go too crazy. If it's obvious who's speaking, I won't even put who it is. I've done that before.
What is important to me is that, and I've kind of learned that too, and I made that mistake a lot in the past and stuff. But yeah, if it's like two people talking, once you've said it once, like Aaron said blah blah blah, Aaron said, and then Daniel said whatever, and then those two are still continuing on in the conversation. It's pretty clear usually who's speaking, So that's where I think a lot of times people use said and stuff too often when you're reading through dialogue and stuff like that.
I bet that way would make the story flow so much easier by like just letting the conversation continue without adding that extra he said, she said in there.
Yeah. Like Carver said, if it's two people, like you said, I feel like it's pretty easy to tell. Now, but I may add it and sprinkle it in, like if there's like a mannerism that happens during a certain part of the conversation. But yeah, less is more with dialogue tags usually, unless it's a big group and it's not obvious,
Yeah.
But yeah, so continuing on with developmental editing, right? So we said general feedback can be included in that type of editing, content feedback, right? And then structural feedback, what worked, what didn't work about your structure, and what structure would be recommended to achieve the goals for your reader. So like, and then book outline too. An outline of the structure we recommend based on your existing content include a list of chapters, a description of each chapter, the subtopics that go into the chapters, and where we think you'll find the content in your current draft. So to me, like a lot of this stuff, and I'll let you guys kind of weigh in, but I don't tend to use a lot of structural feedback myself, or just like how the story's tied together. I kind of obsess over that stuff and like really fucking get deep into it, and like my story's sort of my story, and I tend to just use more grammatical and tense stuff though, right? Tense stuff can be helpful, that kind of stuff. What about you guys?
Yeah, well, go ahead, man.
No, I said, who wants to start?
Oh, I was just going to say that some people, I'm kind of like you, Aaron. I don't use that, but some people really do need it, because, I mean, sometimes it could be as easy as, in one scene you're talking about the characters riding a horse, and then all of a sudden you're talking about them walking over to the other character to say something, and you're like, okay, well, at what point did they get off the horse? You know what I mean? And, like, that's the kind of stuff that sometimes gets left out. Or even something is like, I don't know a whole lot about all the different kinds of guns and shit like that, but someone reading might, and if you mention they had a certain kind of gun and it only carries 15 bullets, a normal clip for that gun, and you have shooting 25 people, at what point did they reload? Like shit like that could be something that's missed if somebody's not watching your back and kind of checking for that kind of stuff,
Yeah, I think like that's a good point, and I think like what do you call it, like if you're writing like some fucking epic thing too, like there's a difference between writing a pretty grounded fiction story and like some fucking like epic journey that has a lot of historical research put into it or something like that. I think that is when it would come more into play. But yeah, that's a great point. Like I actually had that recently with one of my books where it was something that you think would be obvious, and that you wouldn't overlook, but it's missing. It's there early, and then it's missing like at the midpoint. Thankfully, somebody picked up on it for me. But
and there's also something, especially because a lot of the people listening to this are aspiring writers, and there's a lot of like things that you learn as you go on as a writer and as you continue to publish books. Like we talked last time, we were talking about POV last time, and I'm not sure we even mentioned this. We may have, I can't remember. But like a lot of people with their first time writing a first-person POV book, they use I just a ridiculous amount of times, to where it becomes like a laundry list, Like I opened the car door and I stepped out and I did this and I did that and I did, you know what I mean? Like you can't start every sentence with I. That's the kind of stuff that like an editor who's been around a while would probably pick up on, that as a newer author especially, you probably don't know. Even in third person, you don't want to say he, she the entire time, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like those little things that like, especially newer authors, or like a lot of times I've seen you can tell a lot of times when it's somebody's first book, because they tend to drown you with information about their job, for example. So like if somebody was in the medical career field and it's their first novel, they're probably going to tell you so much shit about the hospital and about working the shift and stuff that a normal average person reading a book probably doesn't want to know.
Yeah.
But to you, because that's your everyday job, it's important to you, and you're like, man, this is interesting, and it's like, well, the average person reading this love story doesn't give a shit about the constant, you know what I mean, the 8 hours and how it actually plays out in a hospital all day long. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's
that's the kind of stuff that a lot of times editors, I think, can help, slap you around a little bit and say, all right, we get it. They're in a hospital. Like, move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah, that's the one big thing is, trimming the fat. I think for most of us, like I don't mind reading a door stopper, but if it's a door stopper that has like Carver just said, a bunch of redundancies or things that are completely unnecessary to the story, like the story is hard and the story is going in one direction, then I want to keep going in that direction. I really don't necessarily care what color shirt they're wearing or their entire day unless it is pertinent to the story. And like you said, a good editor will sit there and be like, hey, you don't need this, or you put too much, and you need to really trim this down.
Yeah, and it depends. I think everyone's in different places in their own writing journey, right? So, or you just might be a certain way, right? And that can be a good thing and a bad thing, I think, some people may just want to be like, okay, this is my story. I'm going to write it the way I want it to be. And, I think if you've been writing long enough, that's probably okay. You might be able to take that path. But if someone's earlier on in their writing journey, and you might not, like you said, Carver, simple things like all these same uses of words, that's a thing you could do at the end of your document finalization too, is sort of just Control F and search a lot of the habitual things. You can keep a list of those habitual things. Everybody has them all, and you'll see them in your writing. And if somebody else reads it, like your significant other or a friend, they'll tell you, I kind of see this a lot. And then you can sort of Control F it and be like, okay, I got to get rid of most of these, Yeah. But yeah, I think it's different for each person. So, that's why this is such a crazy topic, I think. But so we talked about, that was developmental editing, right? And there's also obviously, and we talked about structural, and then there's also copy editing, which is just that's reviewing the book for readability and flow, reworking. That's kind of like getting real granular, into the sentences, into the paragraphs, trying to clarify and clean up and make the tight spaces nice so that they flow good. Correcting spelling, grammar, punctuation, obviously any kind of typos. And then it also can improve sentence structure and flow and consistency. And then the last type of editing, which probably a lot of people listening to this show are familiar with, is proofreading, where they're just kind of taking a look at pretty much what's going to be the finished product of the book and giving it a read through, just because, people miss stuff. Even you could have the best editor in the world and they're still probably going to miss something, right? Like you see misses in, major publishing houses. It just happens. It's crazy, but
I think I've probably found an error in every book I've read. I mean, there's something always. I mean, no matter how big the author is or how, there's always stuff that's missed. So one of the things before we move on to the next bullet point, though, that I think is kind of important too is for anybody writing a series, it's important to try, if you happen to use, and it happens quite often, they use a different editor with the second book than you use on the first or the third or something like that. I mean, relationships end, people move on to different jobs, things like that. Sometimes you have to choose a different editor, but it's important to make sure that we were talking about developmental and being consistent and things like that. They need to at least have read your last book, I would say, because sometimes there's change. I mean, if they can't just edit book 3 if they haven't read 1 or 2, because they might miss those things that don't make sense between the books. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good
point.
And
I think I told this story already on here, but I wrote the second book of my Diablo Snuff series and completely changed the character's name. I don't fucking know how or why. Did I tell you guys about that?
You told me you told me recently.
Yeah, I don't know did I say it on the show though? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, because I didn't hear it.
a running joke. I mean, some of my readers, like Rochelle, who I mentioned in one of the episodes, she actually made T-shirts that said, "Who the fuck is John?" Hashtag Who the fuck is John? Because what happened is in Diablo Snuff, the first one, the guy's name is Michael. So then I want to say it was like a year later or something, I started writing the Grindhouse, the sequel. And I don't know why I assumed the guy's name was John. I don't know where it came from. I have no clue. I just started writing the book, and he was John. And thank God he doesn't even really come back into the story until closer to the end of the book. So he's not really the main character in the book. So it wasn't that hard to change later. But I didn't realize till after I published it, and I just happened to be looking on Goodreads and saw a review for the first book where they were talking about this character named Michael. And I said, oh, shit. Like, I'd already published it. I hadn't done the paperback yet, thank God. But the ebook was out there. People were reading it. And none of my, like, beta readers or anything had caught it because it had been so long. I mean, you can't expect them to remember a year ago the guy's name, you know? So I published this book with this guy named John, and that wasn't even his name in the first book and stuff. So I like, messaged Amazon, like, I got to push this version through. You know, I fucked his name up, whatever. And so, yeah, there were T-shirts and stuff out there, like hashtag Who the fuck is John? Because I admitted to it right away. I made posts and stuff saying, hey, for anybody that's reading this and sees John, it's Michael, man. It's Michael from the first book.
Wow.
It happened. I mean, it was a rookie mistake. I don't know. But, yeah. So, I mean, shit happens. Now, that's where I'm saying where for someone – it's important because that kind of stuff could be caught by the right editor and stuff like that. You know what I mean? To make sure that doesn't go through or it doesn't happen to you or something else that screws up your series. You know what I mean? So thank God we caught it right away. But
the one thing I'll say about structural things for an editor is we're going to get into picking your editor and how to pick an editor. We write fiction. You know, we're not writing term papers where we're like, oh, we have to have a proper sentence, you know, structure or paragraph structure or everything like that. Sometimes we do things, and especially, you know, I can speak for myself, I will structure paragraphs for effect. You know, I might have a one-word paragraph, a one-line paragraph, something like that to just kind of give that effect. I think I have a short story coming out soon, and the first line just says blood, and that's it. And then it goes on to the story. So as fiction writers, you have to make sure you get yourself especially horror fiction author. And again, that's a further bullet point, but that's something important when it comes to structure is not getting to that, you know, proper English, you know, confines of structuring your work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and ultimately you got the final say, right? And so we'll get into that final say in a second, I think. But anything that anybody else wants to add about just the four? That's just kind of like the sort of basic ones, you know. Independent, like we said, you know, and you'll see, like, if you do gigs with editors, some of them may charge different rates for different types of editing. So this is something you'll need to look for, because usually if you ask for like contextual editing to make sure that, you know, the story's flowing all properly, that's going to be a completely different price range than someone who's just doing like grammatical and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And definitely for anybody out there looking into this, get your quotes prior. Don't go into it blind. Don't let them, you know, edit it and then say, oh, well, I did X, Y, and Z, so you owe me this. Make sure you have your prices. I would obviously recommend signing a contract. You know, all the times. I have one editor that I use for my self-published works, and him and I come to an agreement prior on what's going to be edited and the price. I tell him the word count. He knows kind of how much work he's going to be involved. So he gives me a price. We agree on it, half up front, half when it's finished, and that's it. So if you have an editor who's doing it without a contract, you probably don't have a legitimate editor.
Yeah. Well,
maybe not a legitimate editor, but just be careful on who you're hiring to do your work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a story that I'll tell in a little bit about even when a contract is in place, how things can go south, you know, and what you should look out for. Can't be super trusting with this, you know. That's why you got to ask around. And when we're talking here, right, where do I find an editor? That's kind of the next thing we're going to move on to. You know, I think the horror community is a great place to understand who's credible, right? Maybe look at some books that you have read, right? And that you respect the editing in. Check out the copyright page. You know, that's always something that I recommend. And then see if that person's available, or look at the recommendations. Like I know, does Dawn do the editing for D&T herself?
She was doing it, but she just hired a professional editor just recently. I think in the last couple books, she's hired a different editor.
Cool. So that's a little different, obviously, because that's submissions, and what we're talking about is self-publishing. But we do want to touch on submissions a little bit later in this one. But yeah, I think, what do you guys think? I think the horror community, there are freelance services like Fiverr that I can recommend, but I guess, like, I'll let you guys weigh in on like any stuff you got, and then I'll tell a story about Fiverr.
So I'll talk real quick on this because my editor, it was kind of like a stroke of luck almost. I had a story accepted to a small e-zine there, Siren's Call. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. And I went through on their Facebook page and through their website, and I was just checking some of it out, and I saw one of their editors. So I was like, oh, you know what? This is cool to know that these are the people that edit it if I ever need an editor in the future. And then after I had completed Billy Silver, I wanted to have it cleaned up as best as possible before I submitted it to any publishers. So I reached out to one of the editors from Siren's Call, whose name is Lee Andrew Foreman. He's in all the covers of my books on the copyright page, and just kind of talked to him, and we worked out a reasonable deal. And that's pretty much how I found my editor. I've never used Fiverr. I've thought about it. I've looked around, but Fiverr is very hard to decipher. There's so many people on there, and if you read any of their bios, a lot of them have they have a lot of very good resumes, but again, it's kind of hard to wade through it. So I got lucky with my guy. He's pretty thorough. Obviously he misses a couple things, so I always do a final read through. Yeah. And then I always get a paperback proof to edit myself. But for what I'm looking for, the story that I need, he's definitely been nothing but good for me. What about you guys?
I found my first few editors through Fiverr, actually. And I think they did a pretty good job, but I had one of the stories I had edited from Fiverr re-edited. And there was so many things that the new editor caught that the Fiverr editor didn't. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, even talking about editing from one to the next, there's things that they can miss, like you said, Daniel, that you really need to do your own final read through after it's done, just to make sure that they caught all the mistakes, or as many as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell a quick story about Fiverr, because I had another bullet point listed here. How do you know you can trust an editor? And I just noted, be wary, because even people with good reviews aren't always what they seem. So my editor that I use, I'm very happy with her. She's edited all my books, actually. But this is a good point to bring up too, as far as a learning curve. My books were not properly edited for the first ones that I released, back when I had the old covers, before I decided to really, go legit. You think at first, you may think, oh, I can just, do this by myself with no one else. You know what I mean? Like 0 other people. That is not, you have to have other eyes that aren't writing the story itself, no matter what form they're in, because you may think you can do it yourself, but you already know in your head what's there. So it's like you're not going to see your mistakes. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, you naturally kind of skim over shit when you don't even realize you're doing it. But yeah,
exactly.
Well, I have to read the story for the 10th time. Because how many times I read my story before I even send it to the editor.
But
you go through and you fix stuff, and you think you know well enough that you fixed it, but the fact that you fixed it caused other errors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You leave those little cookie crumbs, little fuck ups behind that you didn't even realize you did, trying to fix something else. So, yeah.
And so what my problem was people finally had started reading my stuff. And so I wanted to make sure that everything was up to snuff. So I was basically in a mad dash to re-release my first 4 books, okay, and get them all edited again. Now, I was super happy with my editor, you know. She's doing a great job, but I'm like, fuck, man, I need to get these all edited before people start reading them all in this condition. It's not fair to the readers, and, you know, so I was like, okay, let me look at somebody else, right? And so I looked at this woman's profile. She had almost a 5-star rating, I think, like 38 reviews. So it looked pretty credible. You know what I mean? So I had learned a lot about editing since that point, obviously, right? Because when I wrote those first 4 books, I was like, well, shit, man. You know, like, I've learned all this stuff, and fuck, there's so many things that need to be corrected.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it wasn't like super horrible, but it's like obvious shit. Like, you know, after dialogue in the quotes, there's a comma, not a period, and then he said, you know what I mean? Like, but some of the stuff would have stuff like that. So, okay, so I knew I had learned that for myself. Now, what you should get back, in my opinion, when you're working with an editor, is you should get a document back that shows the work, right? It shows crossed out what they altered and then what they changed it to, so that you can easily see every single work and calculate the number of changes that were made and understand what you're really getting back from this person, right? And then there should be a separate document that is, you know, without the revisions, that's just ready to go. You know what I mean? But you keep both, and what I do, I'm saying not everybody has to do this, but this is sort of what I do. So I keep both documents open. I go through revision by revision, and if there's something I need to override that I'm like, oh, no, she just didn't understand, like that's a slang that I wanted in there, something like that, you know, then I'll go and I'll make the change on the refined document that she gave me. You know what I mean? And so so back to the story, right? So I'm scrambling to get these 4 books done and edited as quickly as possible. And I get the document back from the girl, right? The one that I have doing the other book, because my other editor's doing the other ones, right? So the document comes back and she only tracks changes for like, I think like 20 pages. And then the changes are missing. And then I'm like, yo, how am I supposed to know what? She's like, oh yeah, that's just an example for you, you know, so to show you like what I was doing. And then I was like, how am I supposed to know what work you did if you're not showing me what work you did? And then she's like, oh, you know, and that was included. I made sure obviously to have that included in the job. And then on top of that, I'm looking at all the things that I made as rookie mistakes that I've grown as a writer, right? I know these things are wrong. And she missed all of them. Like very obvious, basic punctuation stuff. Shit that I should have been embarrassed not to know at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is a professional editor? No. She's clearly not. So I had to kind of go back and forth and dispute it with Fiverr. And Fiverr's like, well, she said she'll take it back and re-edit it. I said, no, you don't understand. She's not capable. You know what I mean?
Oh.
She does not have the ability to edit. I do not want her editing my document. The shit she gave me is useless. I'm like, it's not just that she didn't track her changes. It's all the shit that she missed. And then, so they start going back and forth with me. They're like, well, we kind of need some proof of it. So I just sent them a couple things. And then they're like, well, that's only a couple things. And then I'm like, all right, motherfucker. So I type out, and literally I put the page number, and I'm like, this is one page. She missed this many fucking things on. And I said, this is a basic punctuation that anyone who calls himself an editor should not be missing this through the entire document. I'm like, this work is trash. Look at my profile. I've spent thousands of dollars with you guys. I tip all your workers hundreds of dollars. I've never fucking had a complaint. You guys got to make this right for me, is what I told them. And they did, thankfully. They fucking refunded me. But that's the story, is that, that editor, although had good reviews, was not a fucking editor. Bottom line, they were not an editor.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, is you got to be careful with, and especially like on Facebook and stuff, because there are a lot of people out there, and I hate saying this because I don't want to stop anybody from getting work either, because there are some very good editors, I'm sure, that are starting out, you know what I mean, haven't taken on clients in a while, or they're just starting now. But you need to be careful with how many people are claiming to be editors, because the fact is not everybody with an English degree is an editor. It's a totally different thing. You know what I mean? Editing books is not just being able to speak English, write English, and, you know what I mean, understand the language and stuff. I mean, there's a lot that goes into editing. So like you're saying, I mean, basic punctuation and stuff like that. But I mean, there's just a lot that goes into editing, and there's a lot of people out there claiming to be editors because they took some English classes in college and stuff, and you just have to be careful with that. So
yeah, one of the things going back to Fiverr that I noticed when I looked, and this isn't obviously a slight on these people, but a lot of them were editors, but they were based in other countries and non-English speaking countries. And again, they may be fluent in English, but if they grew up in another country, they may not know our slang. Some of the certain things, like I'm from New York. There are certain things we say in New York that you're not going to hear anywhere else in the world. So I might want an editor if I'm writing a piece that has to deal with New York that is from the area. And some of these editors that don't have English as their primary language, they might be great in the grammatical stuff, but they're going to miss out on some of the contextual things dealing with, just certain things about the population and the culture.
Yeah.
Even some people that do have English as their primary language, like Jules and I, one time we were at a restaurant and we were like in an almost heated argument about this. It was like something really dumb with grammar. I don't remember. I wish I could remember what the problem was, but we were just discussing something, and I think somehow it came up in conversation that someone had edited something for me, and I was explaining why that was incorrect, and I was explaining to her, thinking she was going to agree with me, why that was incorrect, right? And then she's like, no, I don't see any problem with that. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no fucking way. Like, this goes all the way back to my fucking high school. Like, I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I was like, and then she was like, no, I don't think you do. And like, we just got into this. It was really a dumb, silly argument. But it got us to where she was like, you know what? Fine. I'm going to hold on a second. She brought out her phone and chatted her editor, one of the editors she uses. And she said, what's the answer to this? And she chatted the conversation, and the editor agreed with her. And I said, all right. And I said, well, hold on. Where's your editor based out of? And I can't remember if it was like Australia or England or something, right? I said, all right, hold on a minute. And I messaged an editor that I know, and I said, let me ask them. And they agreed with me. And I was like, okay, they live in America. In the United States.
Dude.
So it's not that anything's wrong, but then her editor actually said, you know what? I mean, he is right in a way, but and she kind of made a joke about it and said that Americans have kind of like dumbed down the language or something like that. And like we just do it differently or something, like we've broken this rule or changed the rule or something. And so I was going to say, sometimes you may actually, depending on, like you were saying, you might want somebody in New York or that knows the New York way and stuff. Like I've had arguments with like friends of mine and stuff that were reading through my stuff that were like in Australia or England or something, because they came back and said, somebody came back one time and said like, what's a redneck? Like, I've never heard of a redneck. You need to change that. And I said, bullshit, I'm changing it. Like, my family rednecks.
Yeah.
Well, West Virginia.
My dad's a redneck. What are you talking about?
West Virginia rednecks, baby.
Yeah.
No, but what you were saying there, Daniel, also is that I'll add on to it is that sometimes if they're out of the country, they can do both. Like, you can select if you want U.S. English or U.K. English. And, I think for me, if they don't get my slang, I'm okay. I can usually pretty much override it. Like the lady that I use, she is from the U.K. And like what you were saying, Carver, we had a thing where I looked it up, and it's like, it is, the way she did it is right for the UK, but it's a very small thing. It's like if you're quoting like a movie name or something and it ends with a period, the punctuation of the quotes is inside the period in the UK, but in US it's outside in the period's included in the brackets. So she would change those on me, and I'd be like, I sent her the rule, and I was like, oh, I think this is the rule for U.S., and she's like, oh, okay, that's right, But those are pretty much like one-off things, You know, for the most part, she's right on the money, and I think it's pretty cool though.
But I think that's why it's important what you said. You should be able to see their work, because like I have had, and just going back, I want to make sure no one thinks I was like talking down to people from other countries and things like that. That's not the case. I'm just saying there's differences. So like if they didn't show me the work or show me what they had changed, I would have just said okay and published it and had no idea that I had just changed a bunch of stuff. Like a friend of mine, we got into a funny argument about, I used a bouncy house, you know, the little things the kids jump in. I called it a bouncy house, and I used it several times in the story. There was this bouncy house was kind of important, and so she wrote that, you know, I could see her comments were like, no, they're called whatever it was called, like in Australia, I think it was like a bouncy. It was like something castle or something. I was like, no, stop changing it. It's bouncy house. Like, that's what I want it to be. And she had gone through and changed every fucking one of them to like whatever that other word was. And so we were kind of like, it was funny, but we were kind of like arguing about it. Like, no, I want it to, it's bouncy house, damn it. That's what I'm calling it. Like, but there's those little changes and stuff like that, that if you don't see it, like if you just give your manuscript to somebody and say, hey, fix it, then I mean, you know what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get what you're paying for, or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever they put in there and change, you'll have no idea what they did. So
let me ask you guys this. Do you think that this is fucked up to do? Like, all right, I'm only thinking, I didn't have to do this. You know, I only learned of it because of that situation I was in, thankfully. But something that's super basic grammatical, like what I was talking about, you know what I mean? Like putting a period and then he said instead of a comma, right? So, do you think it's like fucked up to test an editor to put like, you know, maybe 10 of those in there and see if they pick up on that? And if they don't pick up on that, is that a flag that maybe this person can't work?
I don't think that's fucked up. I know somebody that's done that. They'll purposely misspell a word or something and stick it in there, and it's like their test to see if they catch that word and stuff. Because, I mean, sometimes it's your only way to, I mean, hell, I can tell you there's a lot of jobs out there that test you with shit like that. I mean, you know, they test your typing speed. They test your you know, have you ever taken one of those tests for a transcriptionist, like an at-home transcriptionist? I did it one time just to see if I could do it. I failed. Like, because I mean, you can't, there's so many rules with it. You got to not only be fast, but you got to be able to catch all these things and fix them. And I mean, I don't see why they can do it for jobs and you can't do it when you're hiring somebody, you know?
What do you think? Roland. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
No, you're good. No, that's your baby. That's your book. I don't think it's fucked up at all. I mean, if I'm hiring somebody, I want them to do a job that I can trust. So, no, I don't think it's fucked up at all.
I think a lot of times, if I have a new editor, which I really haven't, but I've had some do short stories, sometimes they will let you send them a sample. So they'll say, send me the first 10 pages or, you know, 5,000 words to edit, and then you can kind of see how they edit. So me personally, if you get somebody and it's new to you and you're a little leery and you're like, I don't know how they do this, rather than signing a contract, ask them, like, listen, if I give you 2,500 words, can you edit it and send it back to me and give me a sample of your work? And then at that point, if you want to slip a couple obvious mistakes in there, you know, then, and just kind of test them out and see where they're at, rather than give them your, you know, 50 or 70,000 word novel that you're waiting 2 months to get it back and like, fuck yeah, they missed this.
Fucking
and then you're like, shit, now I just lost.
Yeah,
I lost 2 months of time. Give them a 2,500 word short story or a 2,500 word chapter or something like that, and say, edit this for me. I want to see how you are, what you do, how I'm going to get this back in what format, and then we'll go from there. That's what I've done.
And then you've got, so I think we're all on the same page. And then you've got a cheat sheet with the things that you put in there, right? Intentionally, and they should be hitting on those. Maybe they miss one, that's not a big deal. That can happen, right? But let's say they hit 9 out of the 10 that you put in there, and then maybe they found some that you didn't. Then maybe you got yourself an editor. You know what I mean?
You can be comfortable.
But at least you got something to gauge. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roland.
No. I was good. I was going to say, like, aside from Fiverr, how else do you guys find your editors? I have been, well, now that I've been writing and I'm, you know, kind of involved in the community, I've been lucky to run across people who actually are readers of horror or just readers in general, and their editing also. I'm just going to throw a couple of names out there because I think these two people are really good. I hope they don't mind me throwing their names. But like one is, Candace Nola. She's now doing editing. And also Mort Stone. He edited one of my stories, and I was like, damn, this is good. Like, the subtle changes that he made in the story, just like minor stuff that I didn't mind him making, it just helped the story flow so much easier and so much better. And I was seriously impressed.
That
Yeah,
doesn't
like,
surprise me.
what other-
Even when he's doing reviews, he's such a good reviewer, and so
Yeah.
into what he's reading. You know what I mean? And like just that wouldn't surprise me. He'd be a really good editor. So
Yeah, he's amazing.
But
like, what other places or what other options do new writers have to find editors that you guys know of?
Well, I just want to co-sign what you said about Mort real quick, just because he has. If you look in, I think my last 3 books, he has. After I get it back from my editor and I do my edits and I get it all refined, I've sent it to him, and he's definitely found a couple of things each time that have helped me out.
Nice.
So if you see, even in my book on the copyright, I give him a little credit. I say, a few additional revisions by Mort Stone. So
Perfect.
I believe that he is actually going to be starting up an editing thing. So maybe that can be a valuable resource for some of the listeners once he gets that up and running. I think we could promote him on here for sure. But I just wanted to agree with you on that. And I think, of course, Candace too. I know Candace is very capable. I just haven't worked with her, so I can't speak to it like that. But I think, like you said, like you're saying it, Roland, almost is the answer that I would give. Is the horror community, asking around, kind of how Daniel had a good story, right? Of how he just looked at some people that he felt comfortable with after he submitted a story. Yeah. And I think looking in the horror books that you respect too, that's another way, But Fiverr, you can. It's hit or miss. You just got to be careful and like be willing to work with somebody that, like we said, I think a little test is in order if it's going to work.
Yeah, I think if you're going to cold call or cold hire somebody from Fiverr, there's so many of them out there, and they're so hungry for work that if you say, I'm going to give you 2,500 words, edit this, send it back to me, and it's kind of like your audition, you might get someone that'll tell you to shit in your hat, but I think you're going to get a good amount of them that are looking for the work, and they work fast. They're going to be like, yeah, sure, give it to me. And I guarantee you'll probably get that stuff back from them quickly, probably within a day, if not less. And you can kind of gauge it on that and say, you know what, I do like this. Kind of like, Roland, you can attest to this with ACX for the audiobooks through Amazon. Yeah. You don't just pick a narrator based on their voice. You do auditions. You pick out a certain section of your text, you put it up there, and they audition for it. And there should be no difference in hiring an editor.
Sure.
If you put a document up that's a short story or a chapter, let them edit it and let them show you why they are the best to be hired. And again, you might not need somebody, because editing, everybody, it is pricey. Between editing and your cover art, you are going to spend some money. So you might not need somebody to do, like we talked about earlier, all of the structure and storyline stuff. You might just be looking for grammar. Yeah. So in that case, you might be able to save yourself money. You
could be going into thousands, Daniel, if you're talking about the structural.
5 cents a word probably in some of these things.
So it's like if you got something that's like a short novella and it's your first time, right? And like you really want to get the whole experience of editing, you can do that. But as you become a more refined storyteller, you'll understand probably how to connect your chapters and make sure everything's flowing there all right. But like Carver said, the little things with what, if the guy's a certain religion and they don't eat meat and suddenly you have that character eating a hamburger 2 chapters in, that they should be catching that type of shit and being like, this shit don't make sense, but
Now, none of us would have them eating a hamburger. It'd be more like eating a baby.
Yeah.
You're fucking eating a hamburger? What are you talking about?
Always with the baby. You got to find a way to work them babies in, huh?
Always got to be.
I mean, that's why.
Roland is a babysitter. Keep him the fuck away from the
Yeah. Carver's got to talk about fucking a family member, and Roland's got to talk about eating a baby.
Yeah. Babies are not going to Uncle Roland.
No, why?
Uncle Roland's nursery.
Yeah.
Well, but no, guys, honestly, I think we've talked about a lot of important stuff so far. And if you think about it, this is particularly tough, right? Because it's almost like when you're giving your car to a mechanic, you don't fucking really know the whole process. You're kind of having to trust somebody and hope they don't fuck you too hard. They just slip 2 fingers in, maybe just a little.
Spit on them at least.
But
not the whole fist.
But all right, so okay, so we're coming up on an hour, so we still got a few more minutes to talk editing. I'm hoping we can get the rest of these points in, but I'm just gonna. So in the sake of time, Daniel, let's just real quick, since there's 4 of us, I'm just gonna pick me and Daniel to just go through overall editing process real quick, and I'll knock mine out real fast just to give people an example. I kind of said it earlier, right? Like, I do my draft, right? I do my first draft, and then I read through the whole entire thing with read aloud feature in Word, so the computer verbally reads it back to me. I catch any errors. I do my rewrites. Then, once I get through that, I hit the editor off with that. The editor comes back. She gives me one document that shows what was taken out, and there's a red line through it, and then what was added, and that text is in blue. So I can clearly distinguish what has been changed here, and if I'm going to go with it, it's already changed in the finished document that she's given me. I just keep scrolling through. And if I'm not going to go with it, I go into that document and make the alteration. Okay, and so now, once I have all that completed, right, I've gone through, and I should mention, when I have the 2 documents up and I'm doing the read aloud, I'm doing the read aloud on my finalized document, and I'm reading through the edited document and looking at the changes, you know what I mean, and sort of checking those. Okay, and then, so once that's done, then I will usually give it to another person or 2, right? Like Mort has been helping me most recently. He'll give it a read through and he'll send me back a few corrections. Usually it's not too much, but he has caught a few really awesome things that help me out. So I feel like that's valuable even after you're done with your process, your editor. Give it to somebody who has no idea what's going on with it. Let them go through it. Then I make those changes and boom, my finished product is there. What about you, Daniel?
So I don't edit along the way. I know some people like to edit along the way. I will just blast out a first draft and I let it sit. I never read it within probably a week. I always let my first draft sit for a week, maybe 2, depending. Because like we talked about earlier, sometimes you gloss over your errors. And if it's still fresh in your mind, you're probably going to miss some of those errors. So just recently, I did get a new Microsoft Word program with the read aloud. So I'm editing a book right now using that. I will use read aloud and I will reread the book. I'll make my changes and updates. When I was self-publishing, I am still self-publishing, but this book is going to a publisher. I would go through, like Aaron said, I would make my changes. I'd get it as clean as I could digitally, and then I would send it to my editor. So my editor, what he would do is the same thing. He would do track changes, and he would send it to me in like a Google Docs. And in the right margin, he would have notes. So if there was something that was crossed out, he would say, hey, omit this for clarity, or omit this for this, or maybe you should add this for this reason. So he would leave me a lot of notes in there. I would go through and the same thing like Aaron would do. I would pick and choose what I wanted to keep. If maybe it was something that was contextual that maybe he missed, I would keep it in there. After I take all of his suggestions, I will then reread it digitally, make sure, see if I missed anything. Then I will submit it to Amazon and I will get a paperback proof. To me, this is like my final step. And I have paperback proofs of all of my books. And I will literally sit there with a red pen and a highlighter and I will read thoroughly a paperback, because sometimes things just look different on paper. And I don't know what it is, but for me, I've caught a ton of small bullshit errors in my paperbacks. I go through, I mark them off, and then I will go back into the digital copies. I make the changes. I fucking say a quick Hail Mary, and then I hit submit. And that's what I do.
And I should say, too, because you kind of reminded me, too, I always get like 5 proofs usually, and I give them to, my wife, and then I'll read a proof, too. I also completely recommend that. And they're like a cool sort of collector's item thing, too, that you could kind of raffle away to readers sometime, or, if somebody did something special for you, hit them up with that, so I think
that's...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's a great, for authors that are looking to selling their own copies, that's a great incentive for people. I had Brad the Man Tierney, he beta read Awakened in Blood for me, and there were some errors, but I ordered a hardcover proof because I wanted to see what it looked like. And I asked him, I'm like, do you want this hardcover? I'll sign it for you, and you can have it with all the errors, or do you want a clean one? He's like, nope, give me the fucked up one. I want that because it's one of a kind. There's no other ones out there like that. So it was definitely something cool.
I just want to say something that seems like common sense and stuff, but I love the read aloud feature too.
Oh yeah.
And but I think it's important to use headphones when you're used to doing the read aloud. It seems like a common sense thing, but it's so easy to zone out when you're doing the read aloud because it's a lengthy process. You're listening to your entire book, man, and it's easy to just kind of zone out and not hear everything. And that process is so important because you are really listening for variations of shit, just things that don't sound right, as you're reading through it. So if you've got kids running in the background and TV in the other room and shit like that, and you're really trying to like focus on your book, just pop some earbuds in or headphones and force yourself to kind of focus, because that's the whole point of that process, is hearing those tiny little details that just like, whoa, wait, oh, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I will read as the robotic narration is going as well. Like I will sit there, and like Carver said, it's fucking painstaking. Like to sit there and listen to this thing reading at a really slow, methodical pace, and to try to read it along with it. But since I've done that with my book,
let's just giggle through all the curse words like I do.
Yeah.
Fucking cunt. You fucking cunt.
Yeah,
I will kill you.
Randomly so that it goes, yeah.
Come.
My voice goes, yeah.
He came in her face.
Ha ha ha.
Or if it's a rolling book, the baby's guts fell out.
Yeah.
You fucking pussy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Smash that.
Oh man.
Oh, going off the rails.
All right. Well, let's just do one more slight bullet point real quick. How much is too much, guys? We want to make sure that the people who are getting ready to write books and put them out don't overpay for editing, because that can happen too. Everybody's got their budget. What do you guys think about right?
For me personally, like I kind of feel like I usually have a fairly clean story, and I don't really use my editor to clean up the storyline or anything like that. I kind of leave that into the hands of the beta readers. So if there's any kind of storylines that are missed, so my editing that I usually look for is almost always grammatical. For me, I kind of like to stay around 1 cent a word for just a grammatical proofread, and I think that's a fairly reasonable rate. If you're going for the full Monty and you want somebody to read it, go through structural, contextual, everything like that, you could be looking at upwards of 3 to 5 cents a word. And again, you're looking at $2,500, $1,000 and up for some larger books. So I like that 1 cent a word roughly. But talk to your editors. Some editors will do payment plans if you need something that is a little more in depth, that is in the 4-figure area. So, don't be afraid to talk to them because they're looking to work as well. So there's no harm in asking.
Yeah. So far, my books
Yeah.
have all been pretty slim. So I haven't really spent a hell of a lot with editing. Not saying it was cheap, but it wasn't $400 or $500, $600. So
Yeah, I think like for me, if I'm looking at like a book that's like just to give people a different measurement, because I know you did the word by word, but I would say like if I have a book that's $60K, maybe looking at like $380, $400, something like that, potentially. So that's pretty much novel length is what 60K is considered. So you could potentially be looking at something like that. Now again, like Daniel, I don't really look for that structural editing unless it's, just something, a small silly thing, not like a major plot hole. I don't really go for that feedback. I kind of just do my thing there. It's more just grammar with me. Not the brightest fucking bulb on the runway, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Bright bulb.
Thank you for co-signing immediately. But
You're welcome, buddy. I'm here for you.
But all right, we said before we get into the mailbag questions and our reader recognition, we did say we would briefly touch on submissions. And we're going to actually, like, once we finish our story, our self-publishing arc, we're going to have an episode where we talk about submitting instead of self-publishing. Maybe a few episodes, actually, on that. But since we're on the topic right now, we know from prior episodes of Written and Read, and maybe just from your guys' own personal knowledge, is that typically if you submit to, like, a small press, usually one of the benefits is that they're going to edit the material for you, so they're absorbing that cost, right? And you're relinquishing the control somewhat, and obviously giving them a percentage of your earnings. So, any comments on the submission process? And because I've honestly submitted some stories to smaller presses, I'll say this, and they're just normal people like you or I. They're not, each press is different. Some presses are incredible, and the editing is really something to applaud. And then there are others that maybe have some opportunity, and maybe that's not their primary focus. Maybe they're just trying to put out material and crank stuff out pretty quick and not really focus too much on the refined product.
One thing I do want to say is, in the very beginning, I did submit to a small publishing house, and I fell for their bullshit, basically. I paid for my own editing at a discount through one of their editors. Now, this wasn't like a vanity press or anything. It was just a normal, smaller publishing house. They were going to do the cover and publish it, and I was so excited to get in with the publisher that I fell for it, and I paid for the editing, and fucking shame on you if you're listening to this. So if you're going to go with a publisher, they need to be able to do something for you too. You know what I mean? Like, you wrote the fucking book, so it needs to be a kind of partnership. So if you're paying for the fucking editing and you're paying for the cover, sorry, I get a little heated with this shit. If you're paying for the editing and you're paying for the cover and you're paying for a bunch of bullshit just for them to take a percentage of your profits, fuck them. You don't need them. So they need to be doing some work too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that they're not, you are going to have to promote the hell out of your stuff, whether you're with the publisher or not. But there are things they should be handling, like the editing. There should be a partnership with the book cover, I'm sure, something like that. But I can't say a whole lot about it because I don't really submit right now. But just from my one experience, I did pay for the editing, and it still pisses me off. That
one experience could just make you fucking submit in life in general, just be like, this is fucking bullshit. That's fucking...
Yeah.
That's...
fucking BDSM clubs and shit. Like,
yeah. Ball gag in your mouth.
Fucking, yeah. Now I'm a sub for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
No,
with one publisher.
That's a great story though, dude, because it's a learning curve, and it's like when I was talking about my editing, like not editing my books by myself, and I mean pretty much by myself. Like, you can't fucking do it. There's just certain things you'll that I probably should have picked up on way earlier, but it's like anything, you make mistakes, you learn, and then you become more refined as a result. So
I'll say this, just because I have submitted obviously recently. When I wrote Billy Silver, I wanted to submit it. That was my goal, was to get it published by someone else. So I ended up paying for editing just to have it cleaned up enough that I could send it to a publisher without them telling me that I was a bag of shit. You want to have something that is somewhat refined to send to an editor or a publisher.
You want to wait till they see a picture of your face before they tell you that, right?
Yeah, when they look at me and they're like, oh, fuck this guy. You need an emoji.
It looks like fucking 20 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag.
A 5-pound bag. But I did pay for some editing first just to submit it, because I wanted to make sure that I was giving them a cleaner product, because like Aaron, I only finished the 6th grade and I wanted, my grammar's not that great. So I wanted to make sure that it was good. But yes, I did spring for an editor prior to submitting it, and then it got fucking shot down by all those publishers. So then I brought it back, had it re-edited, and you get what you get today.
Fucking look at you now. You're on the Written in Red podcast co-hosting, dude. This is incredible. This is fucking incredible.
I have dolls behind me. It's great. Like, I'm living the life.
Like, am I in a dream right now? This is insane.
I don't know. I don't even know where I am.
All right. Well, that's what we got for evil editing. I'm sure, down the line, maybe we'll talk about this topic a little bit more. Maybe when we have some recommendations for you guys too, as we continue to sort of grow, right, and branch out and talk to more people. But
Aaron, real quick,
sure.
I know we had in there some of the software things. There are plenty of editing softwares out there that some people can use to kind of clean their stuff up prior to submitting it to an editor. One thing that I use a very basic version of Grammarly, the free version. It's okay. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but again, I'm using a free version. I think there's ProWriter. I think that's another one that's out there.
Yeah,
ProWriter.
I think there's the one that you pay for with Grammarly, like it goes and that looks at sentence structure and stuff. I think,
yeah.
Right.
So no, there's another program I think called ProWriter.
A different. I'm sorry, different.
Yeah, I think it's there's Grammarly Pro, and then there's ProWriter, I believe.
Fucking pay attention, Aaron.
Shit,
yeah,
man.
He's
get
got
that fucking Twizzler out of your nose, all right?
Luckily, it's in his nose, not anywhere else.
I don't know. It's going off camera every couple seconds.
I'm not that kind of sub.
But yeah, there are softwares out there for editing that can help you clean your shit up before. Go ahead, Roland. I'm sorry.
Do you think that one of those professional softwares that you pay for will do a sufficient job, like in editing your story? Have you ever used one, or?
I haven't used a professional one, but I think that the combination of like a Grammarly Pro, because I use the Grammarly Basic, and the Read Aloud will get your story cleaned up enough that you're not going to get laughed out if you submit it to an editor or a publisher. Okay. Me personally, I am not confident enough in my own abilities that I would feel comfortable. I would have to at least have it beta read by a few people that are smarter than I am, which is the majority of the population. But hiring a professional editor for me is the way that I would go.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, Daniel, right? Like Daniel talking to the computer, there's no human in between. It's like computer says this, Daniel's not sure. Where do we go from here? Google, another computer. But I don't think it's enough, personally. I think you need a set of human eyes. You need somebody that is comprehending the story, right? Not just the text. Because not to say that, like I said, I don't really like people fucking with my story flow. But if there's something left out, like we talked about, the guy and the horse, and then suddenly he's standing, that the computer probably won't pick that up. And one thing you should be very careful of, too, is that a lot of these so-called editors will just put your shit into a software, and then that's your edited shit. That's why you need to get that document back. Daniel said he used Google Docs. I use Word personally. So she sends me back the Word doc. It's got each fucking thing. Like Daniel said, there should be a couple notes in there, at least.
It's reminds me when I lived in Panama and I was a teacher, and the students that would try to run shit through Google Translate, they would just like plagiarize a website in Spanish, copy it, paste it in Google Translate, and then copy that version of English and paste it into a document. And it was ridiculous, man. You should see some of the shit that got turned in. Even the hyperlinks and shit were still in it. It was just
That's awesome.
like,
No.
really? Oh man.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Roland? I know you asked the last question, I feel like, right?
Yeah, I did. No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm sure we'll be back on this topic again in the future. And as our community evolves, hopefully we have some recommendations when we approach it again.
Yeah.
We have one now, right? Roland, you said Candace Nola.
Yeah, Candace.
You can reach out to her. She goes by that on social media, right? And she's Uncomfortably Dark is her website.
Yeah.
If you want to get an idea for her, capability, just read some of her articles and reviews on the website.
Amazing.
Really good stuff, clean stuff. So that's a portfolio right there, just waiting for you to check it out. So
Yeah. Awesome.
But I think today to finish out, we got time for a couple questions. I'm hoping we can get 2 in, and then we can do our reader recognition.
All
All right,
right.
going to the mail cup.
Do it.
Did you
The
see this
handwritten
fucking
mail
movie yet,
cup.
Daniel?
What?
You saw this now, right? By now you've seen this movie?
Yeah, sure, if that's what you want to believe. No, I haven't fucking seen it.
What
It
a
is a
fuck,
good movie.
man! What are you waiting for? Fucking Halloween 2025, guy?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
All right, this is from Cameron P. Says, horror fiction lover as well as an aspiring horror author here. Love the podcast so far and hearing all 4 of your interviews. I was curious what you all use for writing software. We Scrivener, Ulysses, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, etc. We've kind of covered that in one of the episodes.
Yeah, let's give a quick
couple
recap,
episodes.
just in
But
case.
yeah, we can do that.
I personally I'm a Word guy. That's my shit. And then I do just real quick. I do all my writing in Word. I format based off of a paperback template in Word, crafting my paperback as I write. And then once that paperback is all edited and refined, that goes into Valium, and I format it in Valium for the ebook, and then generate that, and that's my process.
Mine is pretty much the same, so I'll just, without saying much, to say that's my process too.
So I
Vellum, pretty much. So
Hey, high five, dude!
yeah.
yay!
I will use Google Docs to write my stuff initially because
Yeah.
Google Docs is web-based and it saves. But now I have a new Microsoft Word program, so what I've been doing is I'll write it initially in Google Docs. As I'm going, I will save it in Word on my hard drive. And what are you fucking laughing about?
Sorry. I just want to ask: Are you a Google Doc sucker?
I do. I love it.
I
don't
haven't
even get
done
it.
it. That's why I'm so childish. I'm sorry.
No, you are. That's very childish. We're having a serious fucking conversation from a mailbag question.
I'm sorry, Cam.
Anyway, this poor guy's asking a fucking question. But I will write it in Docs. I'll save it in Word, and then I do all my editing in Word. Roland, fucking play us out with your answer, please.
I can't because I'm too busy laughing.
Think about Doc sucking?
Word also. I just use Word. Actually, I've never used the Word book template that you were talking about, Aaron. So that sounds pretty cool. And I haven't used Valium. What is it, Valium?
Vellum.
Valium?
They don't know. They change every episode. They say
I
Valium,
keep fucking it up.
Valium.
Carver's
It's fucking
consistent.
Vellum. He says Valium. I don't know. He's
Hey, Valium sounds like
Well,
a fucking
I wish
drug
I had
on
a
Saturday.
Valium.
sounds like
alright?
Valium.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm gonna
Valium.
fucking need one after this show. Let me tell you.
Hopefully
yeah,
I'm
like
right.
you
I
said.
could be wrong all along, but any author I've ever talked to says Vellum, except you.
Well, I
Valium.
always call it fans only too. You know.
Yeah,
I'm just
true.
like a fucking
That's
bum.
true.
I'm a bum weirdo.
that's true. We know that.
Oh, you guys are crazy.
You want to do another one?
Let's do another one.
Yeah.
All right. Some of these, like that one, you could tell had been there a while because he said he liked our interviews, which was like the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, that was in February.
Yeah. Sorry, Cameron.
Answering these stagnant
This
ass
one
questions.
from Donna. She said,
Hey,
I already.
Donna.
Oh, this was just came in today. She said, I already asked Carver this on TikTok.
Oh yeah.
But what are your favorite non-horror books? Never forget how awesome you all are. You're pretty
Oh,
damn
wow.
awesome too, Donna.
I
Thank you.
love Donna. She's so
That's
sweet.
awesome, Donna.
Yeah.
So, what are your favorite or I'll answer too because I just answered on TikTok today. But
What's not?
you guys go. What are your favorite non-horror books? What?
What's
No, you got
non-horror? Okay, I love Roald Dahl. Maybe am I saying his name right? Roald Dahl.
No, but it's all right.
What? How is it? How is
James
it
and the
pronounced?
Giant Peach? You talking
Yeah.
about?
Valium Dahl.
Yeah. Real
Yeah,
now?
no, actually, he has some really great. I do love his children's books, but he has some really good fucking adult stuff that's overlooked. I think he's real good. I'm a big fan. There's a book called Tales of the Unexpected that I highly recommend. I'm a big fan of Jim Thompson. He writes like gritty pulp stuff. I'm big into true crime too. I love true crime. The Iceman book about Richard Kuklinski. That's an incredible book. Columbine by Dave Cullen. Incredible book. So yeah, those are some
He's
that come
just
off.
not that into you. Do that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not reading the Chris Genovese specials, but
I pretty much read everything. So probably my favorite non-horror books are probably written by Joe Abercrombie. He writes really like grimdark, fucking dark ass fantasy, very realistic, very violent. So definitely, probably fantasy is my top pick after horror, and Joe Abercrombie is definitely my favorite fantasy author. So
What kind of fantasy is it? Just curious. Like, is it?
it's what length is it? You said?
No, what kind? Like, is it like?
It's considered like they call it grimdark. So
Okay.
it's more like realistic, kind of. It's very light on magic, but it's very big on like very gray characters. So like, think of Game of Thrones or A Song of
Okay.
Ice and Fire, but better and completed.
Gotcha.
I got it. Like
Minus the dragons, right? Do those books have dragons?
They have-
and shit too,
Yeah,
or-
not Joe Abercrombie. Like I said, is very very light on the magic stuff. There is some of it, but it's a lot of like human drama. You know, a lot of like Vikings and barbarians and people from different lands and shit and torturers. So his shit's awesome. But
like the shit.
super violent.
You talk about like the
I'm
shit
gonna-
that fucking nerds read and stuff, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the guys that
Okay.
that are virgins. We call them virgins. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead of Roland here just because I want to piggyback on what you're saying there because
Okay.
that's the kind of stuff I haven't read his stuff yet, but I do want to buy him. I almost bought the whole set the other day. But like I
Sure.
like the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. That's one of my favorite series, and that's similar. I mean, there's magic in that, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's similar. It's like that dark fantasy, grimdark. I love the Game of Thrones stuff, the Song of Ice and Fire series. Like you said, I just wish it would be finished. And I love redneck revenge, just badass characters getting revenge kind of stories too. Like I love Stephen Hunter stuff. That's the author that wrote the books that the TV show Shooter's based on. So all of his books are like that, just kind of redneck sheriffs and shit getting revenge and stuff. It's just badass. And if you guys haven't read Orphan X, that's a cool series too, man. Kind of similar. It's like a little kid that was playing basketball in the park. He's like a foster kid or something like that, and he gets taken by this organization, and they train him to be like basically an assassin. What happened?
What happened to Daniel?
Fuck him, dude. No, I'm just kidding. I kicked him out, dude. He was out of control over there.
Fuck him.
No,
Are we
I'm
still
sure.
recording?
Yeah,
That's
we're
mostly my favorite stuff, man. That kind of stuff. And go ahead, Roland.
Mine is definitely fantasy. Like one of my favorite books is Kingdoms of the Wall by Robert Silverberg, and then Simon R. Green. He has a Nightside series. I think it's Nightside.
Do you read I know you like Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Do you read the books like all
Yeah. Well, there's shoot, I cannot remember the name. It's like a Forgotten Realms. There's a whole series of that. So I read a lot of those too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pierce Anthony's too. I don't know if y'all read the Xanth series, but like he has an amazing series about this fictional world called Xanth, and the characters are amazing. So a lot of fantasy for me.
Well, like I'd asked Daniel about, I just bought that book Timeless by R.A. Salvatore about Drizzt or whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that this is like apparently like book 35 or some shit. So, damn. I guess I got a lot of reading to do to get to this one. So
it should only take you 100 years.
Yeah, I guess, huh?
Hey, we'll all get there, or we'll die trying. You know.
Right.
Wasn't Daniel going to do the reader recognition? Where'd he go?
Was he? Oh well, all right. Well, we can kind of wing it. I think we know who it is. I certainly know Josh from Working Man Reads. I'll put up. Oh, okay. Daniel's back.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what the hell happened. Some technical difficulties here.
You got it back just in time. We were going to do the reader recognition, man.
Oh yeah. Did you already start it?
Well, I just said that it's Josh from Working Man Reads.
Yeah, Josh is awesome. He read my book Talia, and he already ordered A Gift of Death. He has a great YouTube channel. Check him out on there. He does a lot of awesome book reviews. He's big on Instagram. I think that's his main. I think he's on Instagram and Twitter. I don't think he's on Facebook, but check him out. It says Working Man Reads, and he puts out a lot of good content. He finds a lot of cool indie horror authors. The guy's like a voracious reader, and I've had personal chats with him and stuff. He's just an all-around nice dude. So, Josh, thank you for doing what you do for the community, for supporting everyone, and just being a fucking cool dude.
Yeah, he's bought a signed copy of Wedding Day Massacre for me, too. He's bought a few of my books, and I'm sure he's actually very interactive with the show, too. I'm sure, actually, you'll probably see him in the comments. He tends to comment sometimes on the YouTube videos, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've also... Oh, sorry, what was that cover?
No, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've seen some of the content that you're talking about. I 100% agree. He's always finding different, unique people, some cool reads. I think anybody who just wants different stuff, follow that Working Man Reads, dude. He's a good guy and a great member of the horror community.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, definitely is. I was just going to say that, I've seen him on Instagram, and he just shared something of mine recently or posted about one of my books on Facebook. And, he's very active and just really cool in the community.
Awesome.
Yeah, actually, the day we're recording this show, he actually just shared this podcast to his page on Instagram. So,
thank
he's
you.
definitely a supporter of the show. So check him out.
I'm gonna jump on real quick. I know we already talked about Donna, but I just have to send one quick shout out to her. Just a couple of weeks ago, well, not that long ago, I wasn't feeling too great. Like I was just not in a good place. Not to bring the mood down, but out of the blue, I had a package on my porch. Donna sent me like a coloring book and said, "Cheer the fuck up." With with like complete color, like color pencils, out of the blue. And I was like, "Damn, that's like the sweet." Like I got chill bumps talking about it. Like that's
was it like an erotic fairy tales coloring book or something?
It was just a coloring book and it said "Cheer the fuck up." But I was like, "That's amazing." For her not to even give me a clue that she was doing it. I just walk home and I have a package on my porch from her. So I just got to say thank you so much to Donna. I know we all love her, and she's such a big part of the community. So thank you.
Absolutely. Donna's awesome.
Donna's great. And I think, guys, as a result of that story, that's a great story. There's so much negative shit in the world. When you hear a good story like that, it deserves to be rewarded. So I think we should make an executive decision. And one of the 10 signed, written, and read things, I think, goes to Donna. What do you guys say?
100%.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally agree.
Yes.
I was going to say, she just helped me through a really rough time, too. I talked to her a little bit, and I want to say she's bought quite a few of my books. Scalp, she read it, she loved it, and she's been, like, just buying them for other people. It's just, like, random, constantly.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's great. I agree we should do that.
She shares. She's a giver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are just some people that gain more joy than getting something for themselves that by just giving people and sharing with people, and you know that's something that deserves to be rewarded. So I'm glad you guys are on board. Don't worry, everyone else. We still got 9 more to give away. So
Yeah.
But I think if you guys listening to the show, you can say Donna deserves it. You know, if you
Absolutely.
if you don't think so, go fuck yourself. How about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Go join that publisher.
Because
that
Donna's
made me
getting
pay-
that fucking signed thing.
We'll give her all fucking 10 if you got a problem with it, motherfuckers.
Fucking bastards.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Real pieces of shit out there.
Now I'm all fired up. All right.
Fight someone.
So, all right. So this has been a great episode, guys. Evil editing. Again, this is a topic that we'll come back to again as the show continues to grow. We thank everybody for listening to the Written in Red podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, please. Spotify. We're going to remind you where you can check our stuff out one last time. Again, my name's Aaron Beauregard, the Splatterpunk nominated horror author. I got Son of the Slob that will be out by the time this video is out. So that is probably the biggest book of my career, I would say, because it is the follow-up to The Slob, which has been getting some crazy love and hate, dude. I love it all. Bring it all on. Shit on me. Tell me you love me. Give me a kiss. Slap me in the face. Let's do it. But, you know, I would say reach out to me on social media, or you can email aaronbeerregardhorror@gmail.com if you want to get some slob sex, because I got some sex with a bunch of shit.
Did you say
in it.
sex? Did you say slob sex?
That's only for you, Daniel.
Oh, okay,
Only
good.
for you.
I can't
But
wait.
That's it, because you make it what you want in your ears. I know what you do. It's fine.
I do.
But all right,
right.
so that's me. What about you, Daniel?
Daniel J. Volpe, Facebook, Daniel Volpe, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Daniel J. Volpe Horror, or DJ Volpe Horror. You can find me there. My newest book, A Gift of Death, just came out from D&T Publishing, so check that out. And again, you can probably message me on any of those platforms if you want a signed copy or just want to shoot the shit. I'm always down to talk. Carver?
Daniel, before we get to Carver, I want a
Yeah.
signed copy of Gift of Death. And congratulations. I've been seeing a lot of good reviews on that. So I'm very happy
Thank
for
you.
you.
You
I
just gonna
appreciate
fuck me
it.
off for that shit?
Oh, fuck
Huh?
Carver. He ain't released a book all year, this motherfucker.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Aaron and I are fucking carrying the team here.
Oh,
Bashing it.
congratulations, man. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's doing well. The feedback's been great, and you know, I've been loving it. And all right, Carver, I don't write any books or purchase any swag pike. Please tell us about yourself.
I got some signings coming up. I gotta figure this swag shit out, man. No
Yeah,
joke.
It's like a fucking
So yeah,
post-it
I'm
note.
Carver Pike. You can find me everywhere as Carver Pike. Is pretty much where I'm everywhere with that. I just started TikTok too, and I'm kind of I'm embarrassed to say excited about it, but it's fun, man. It's different. So yeah, I'm everywhere as Carver Pike. My books are wide, so please check it out. If you want something to start with my stuff, go back and start with A For and Evil, the first book in my Diablo Snuff series, because my next book coming out, I don't have a due date yet, but The Maddening is my next book out, and that should be the final book in the Diablo Snuff series. So, thank you.
I'm excited for that one, Carver.
Yeah. Oh, Roland Bursey. You can find me
How
on
about that? A
Facebook.
gift of death. Gift of death. Congratulations.
Oh,
Give it up.
right in the corner there. There it is.
Sorry to interrupt you, Roland. Go ahead, man.
That's okay. Roland Bursey. You can find me on Amazon, Facebook. Roland Bursey Jr. Send me a message. Say hi. Find me on my website, rolandburseyjr.com.
The fuck.
On that note, good night, y'all.
All right, guys. And until next time, keep it 100% horror.